one of the great things about working with Equitable Bank is your processing and your communication, because I can guarantee my customer that they're going to know what's happening and what they need, and they won't have to send the same information over and over again, and they'll understand what's happening until we get to closing. And it really cuts down on the anxiety, because buyers are very nervous. When they get to closing, then they realize, oh, this wasn't bad at all. But getting there, they are very nervous.
Hi, welcome to the Smart Start Podcast, presented by the Equitable Bank. I'm Tom Sattler, your host. Yeah, I'm reading cards because this is the first time I've ever done this, so hang in there with me. If you're thinking about buying a home or just want to understand the home buying process, you're really going to enjoy this. You're going to hear today from the best of the best in the home buying business. So sit back, tune in, and start dreaming about buying your first home or dream home. On today's episode, we'll have a little later, we'll be hearing from two Equitable Bank LOs who were first introduced to the bank as first-time homebuyers. But first, we're joined by Mary Edwards of Realty Executives, the principal at the Mary Edwards team, and Veron Gray, the Community Lending Director of the Equitable Bank. They'll be providing their expertise with us. So I'm going to start with Mary. Mary, I'm in my late 20s, ready to buy a home. What's the first thing I'd expect when I call Mary Edwards?
The first thing you can expect when you call me is for me to introduce you to a lender. So I would give you Veron Gray's information. I want to make sure that you are first able to be pre-approved and are aware of what's available for you, meaning there are sometimes opportunities available for a buyer. Once I connect you with the lender and you work through the process of getting pre-approved, then I want to touch back bases with you and sit down with you to understand your needs and your wants.
Okay, so maybe I should turn to Veron then, since Mary's handed it off to you. Okay, Mary's introduced me to you. What do I do next?
Great. So when I meet with an individual that comes looking to buy a home, I first want to know, are you a first-time home buyer? If they have any idea what their credit is, how much they're looking. Are they looking to buy a single family home, or is it going to be a duplex or a rental? And then we'll look at income to see what their affordability is based on the income and their existing debts. And just trying to get to know my customer, what they're looking for, what price range they're looking for, and then we'll go from there. And then we'll talk about documentation. There are certain questions I would ask to see if a person is ready to go right away. If they're not ready, then working with them, telling them what to do to prepare. But then if they're ready, we'll go ahead and take an application and collect documentation for that application.
Terrific. And then back to Mary now.
Yes. So then I would like to sit down with them. Nowadays, since the pandemic, a lot of times I'm meeting with people virtually on Zoom. Before, I would always love to meet with them face to face, but it's based on their comfort level right now. And then I generally would just ask questions. For example, what are they looking for in their home? Like if they could just dream of what they want in their home. I like people to dream because people tend to limit themselves by their pre-approval or their area or whatever limitations they have in their own mind. So I generally ask people to dream. Like if I could picture you in your new home today, what does that look like? And that gets them to really open up and dream, because maybe I can't get you that walk-in closet, but maybe I can get you that ensuite. And so I really want them to think. So when I'm looking, if I see something that's really going to make them excited, we can work on that. Another question I'll talk to them about is features that may be really important to them. They may have someone in their home that maybe needs certain type of needs. They may need handrails in the shower, or they may have to have a two-story versus a one-story, etc. And I also talk to them about their financing. So I never step into your realm. However, they could be approved for $500,000, but they know how they want to live. They may only want to spend $250,000 or $300,000, right? And so we talk about that a little bit, because I try to educate them on not only the pre-approval, but taxes, like how taxes is going to play a role. If it's a condo, the association fee, how that's a part of the expense as well. So we go through that. And then we talk about other things that may be a concern. And then we talk about the process. So I go talk about what starts at the beginning and all the way through closing and how I stay in touch even after that. So the meeting generally goes about an hour, depending on the person's conversation, but it gives me more than anything an opportunity to really get to know them, what's important to them, so that I can meet their needs, not just out here looking at houses that won't meet their objective.
Terrific. So I just wanted to point out too, we are at the Greater Milwaukee Area Realtors Home and Garden Show. So again, the Equitable Bank's proud to be a part and affiliate member of the Home and Garden Show. So, and the GMAR as well.
Mhm.
So then back to Veron now. Okay, we now have Mary has found a home for their buyer. What's next?
So what we normally do, especially for what I do at the bank, I work mainly with first-time home buyers, individuals that are looking for down payment assistance. So once you get pre-approved, you start working with your realtor to find a home. Before you get to that phase, we will already know what you can afford to buy and what kind of down payment assistance that we have to offer to a buyer. And as Mary was talking about, sometimes depending on if you're buying a condo with, association dues, we have to look and see if your affordability based on the taxes, because you cannot find two homes for 100,000 per se. Mary said 500,000, but you can find two homes for 100,000, and the taxes may be different, and so that makes a difference with the affordability. But once a borrower finds has an accepted offer, then we'll sit down and then we'll actually do an application, submit to underwriting, and then at that time we'll do grant reservations. So we do have some grant funds available based on household size and income to help those individuals with down payment and closing costs. And then application gets submitted to underwriting. We'll order appraisal, and typically when you have an accepted offer, it takes around 30 days, 30 to 45 days to close. So by at that time, then as a lender, we are processing the loan. Mary will be working on some things on her hand with maybe home inspection contingency. But the great thing about it is that we are working together as a team with this individual that is looking to buy a home and making sure that we get to a successful close.
Okay.
And no plug intended. One of the great things about working with Equitable Bank is your processing and your communication, because I can guarantee my customer that they're going to know what's happening and what they need, and they won't have to send the same information over and over again, and they'll understand what's happening until we get to closing. And it really cuts down on the anxiety, because buyers are very nervous. When they get to closing, then they realize, oh, this wasn't bad at all. But getting there, they are very nervous.
Well, thanks for the plug.
Oh,
But
you're welcome.
But the other part of it too is we've talked previously is you also work with you're a listing agent as well. When your sellers are presented with offers, what do you look for?
The pre-approval is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get the best offer, but if they can't physically purchase, it's not worth the papers written on. And we're not supposed to keep a list as professional real estate agents, but we all know when we see a particular pre-approval from a particular lender, we're like, uh-oh, because we know the experiences we've had in the past, and we are representing our clients, our sellers, and we don't want them to go through certain heartaches they don't necessarily have to.
Great. Terrific. Okay, so it sounds like this is a pretty easy process. What are some of the things? Let's say for some reason today, I'm looking to buy a home that maybe I can't, or maybe I have some credit impairments. Should I just give up? What do I need to do?
No. And so that's what I'm here for. Because typically I meet with a person, it's not just to do a loan or to close on a loan. It's to help that person. So if they're not ready, then I'll review their credit, give some recommendations as to what needs to be done. We also work with some community groups that they would go to get home by education and counseling, and once they are done with the education and counseling, then they'll come back to the lender once they are ready. But no, If you feel that you want to buy a home, that's what we're here for. We look at your credit, we look at your income, and see what your affordability is. Let you know what you need to do if you're not ready right away. Let you know what you need to do, and then kind of work with you, hold your hands, kind of work with you, and get you to the path to home ownership.
Okay. Mary, can you share with us one of a story of somebody that you may have worked with? It doesn't have to be with the Equitable Bank. That kind of first-time home buyer or somebody. Is there any unique or ones that stand out for you that may be of interest?
A buyer that stands out to me that I had a really good experience with is because afterwards was a first time home buyer that was approved extremely low. And while we were looking at homes, I was just talking to her. She was a first time buyer, she was a single mother. And I was talking to her while we were going through homes about saving, about retirement, about establishing a budget, about living within a budget, about preparing for her son's future, etc. And these small talks, I was just doing them, but I didn't know whether or not she was paying attention. And years later, I'll never forget, I was in Maryland for Thanksgiving and I get a phone call on Thanksgiving Day. She called and she said, I woke up this morning and I was thinking about what am I thankful for? And you were the first thing that popped in my mind. And I literally teared up. And I was like, why? Because this is a client from years before. And she said, because I am a better place because of what you sowed in me and what you've talked to me about. She's like, I have a savings account. I have an emergency fund. I'm contributing to my 401k. I started a college fund for my son. I live within a budget. My house is fixed up. And that just made me feel the value of what I do, knowing that I have the opportunity to impact people in a powerful way. A few years after that, she decided to move to Georgia, and we ended up selling her home, and she made a huge profit. You know what I mean? So it was being able to contribute into that mindset, and you contribute to neighborhoods, to communities, and I personally think you contribute to families' future because now they have home ownership. Now that's part of their legacy of what they're going to be leaving to their children, their children's children. So that's the story that stands out to me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I have an experience too recently. So strange that you asked Mary that question because I had a client that I worked with. She closed like in 2018, and she recently called me this week, and she said she was like, Veron, I don't believe you remembered me, and she told me her name, and the name sounded familiar, but I really didn't remember her. But the impact that I made on her while I was helping her through the process of buying her home, now she's looking at selling because at that time she bought a duplex. So now she's looking at selling the duplex and wanting to buy a single family home. And she said that she just loved how I worked with her and helped her, that she never forgot
Yep.
who I was. And then she calls me now that she's looking to buy another home and keep the one that she had before
Yeah.
as a rental.
And people don't realize in our industry that it's not brick and mortar, that we're dealing with individuals and we're making an impact on them, not the paper and not the physical home. But what we also got to remember is people are creating memories in those homes. And so I believe what we do is important.
It's a great impact on the community. Yes.
So we hear a lot about the current environment out there and the anxiety that people have about home ownership in general and what happened in 2008, et cetera. But okay, what would your advice be to somebody that's listening to this podcast or listening to the podcast? What would your advice be to those individual who may be saying, is this the right time to buy a home? I'd like to hear from both of you.
I think this is a great time to buy. It's always a great time to buy. Even though last year, a couple of years ago, rates were real low, but that wasn't
The norm.
The norm. And so I remember because I've been working with Equitable Bank 20 years, been doing lending like almost 29 years. But when I first came to Equitable Bank, 20 years ago, interest rate was 5-6%, and people were still buying homes. And so I would tell anyone now it's a great time to buy, especially if you are a first-time home buyer or if you're buying for the second time, there are down payment assistance available to help individuals based on your household size and income. Great. Last year we had grant funds was 6,000. Now it's up to 10,000
Yeah.
or even more based on where you live. And then the underwriting guidelines, the government entity that makes up these underwriting rules for us to lend, now everything is geared towards, individual purchasing and buying homes that you're going to occupy as their primary residence. So now I believe still is a great time to buy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And values are constantly, steadily going up in real estate, which is great. And for fun, just because I try to be aware of what's going on in my industry, I actually searched this week what was the average interest rate over 50 years, and it was 7.75%. So we're still under the average interest rate. So it's a good time to buy. People just have to understand that last year, the year before, is not the norm. So if you're waiting for something that's not the norm, you're going to pay more money. Because if you're renting, you're paying 100% interest rate. And you got to understand that you're paying somebody else's value for the future.
Right.
Where when you purchase, you're paying your own. And I don't want to, minimize it, but you can always refinance if you're not happy with the rate. It gives you an opportunity to keep your credit up, etc. But honestly, the rates are good. They're not,
Right. And that's what I tell some of my clients that I've talked to when they're talking about, interest rates. Because a lot of times when a person buy a home, you'd be surprised. Even myself, for example, I've refinanced twice since I've bought my home. And so even though you're getting a higher rate now, but later on you can always refinance. But it's good to start to build that equity
Yeah.
now.
With
Now.
home ownership, you're investing in yourself, period. And every time I make a mortgage payment, I'm paying myself. I know
Right.
we pay interest, etc. But, I try to communicate, paying extra on the principal, etc. When I meet with my buyer, all that stuff we'll go over in the consultation to try to help them have a good experience within their life, within that home.
I'd like to touch on the grant programs again,
Yes.
because I think there's a misconception that grants are only for people who may, well, obviously it's nice to need them, but maybe there might be a little misconception about
Yeah.
how grants are utilized and who can actually qualify it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that would
Yes,
be?
so we do have the $10,000. It's a down payment plus grant that is available. You do not have to be a first time home buyer, and and it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account.
Mhm.
You could have. I've worked with individuals that have maybe $20,000, $30,000 in their bank account, and based on their household size and income, they still qualify for this 10,000. So it's better for them to keep their own fund and get and this money. It's forgivable. It's not money that you have to pay back unless you sell the home before 5 years. But no, we money's available right now, lots of it, and you do not have to be a first time home buyer. And so it's just based on your household size and income, and we'll be able to help.
And I also want to touch base on that is that a lot of people think it's just for Milwaukee County,
Mhm.
and it's not. Waukesha, Washington, I've even seen Ozaki, Sheboygan. So people are surprised to find there's assistance
Yes,
in
there's
their area.
additional. Yeah, if you buy a home in those areas, there are additional funds too. Actually, up to $20,000
Mhm.
if you're looking to live in Ozaki, Washington, or
Waukesha.
Waukesha counties. Up to $20,000. That's amazing. This is a great time now
Yeah.
to purchase.
Terrific. Okay, so what's the one thing you want us to walk away with here, Mary, before we sign off?
I would say the one thing is home ownership is exciting. And I think it just opens up many more doors besides home ownership. And if you're looking to purchase, you want to find a lender that's going to look for your best interests, that's going to explain the process, that's going to give you your options, that's going to empower you. And you want to look for a realtor that's going to do the same, that's knowledgeable about the industry and not just looking for a quick transaction.
So, Mary, I believe you also have mentioned to me previously that you have actually worked. As I said, I'm in my late 20s. You've also worked with somebody who might have been a little bit older than the 20
Yes,
something.
yes. I have a client that I actually referred to Equitable Bank, and she was 91 years old, first time home buyer. Very grateful, very excited. And one of the things I do is when we're done, I'm not just done with you. I check in on you. And I've been calling her. She's still very happy and she appreciates the process. She appreciates Equitable Bank. And she literally, Veron will tell you, she literally cried at closing because this was always one of her dreams, always. And to obtain it at 91 and to know that we're humbled enough that she allowed us to do so, consider all she's seen in 91 years. I mean, that's pretty deep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So,
Veron, do you have any other stories you'd like to share?
Doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter. We're here to help.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about the available lending programs for the Equitable Bank themselves? Is there a difference between a conventional loan, FHA loan, anything like that?
Yes. So, again, depending on a person's credit and their debt to income, we have a couple programs that are geared towards specifically for first-time home buyers, or even if you're not first-time home buyers, is our government FHA program. Minimum down payment is 3.5%, and depending on how much your affordability is, the grant funds can help. Like recently, I am actually working. I just got pre-approved a mother and a daughter, and the mother is like 90 years old. The daughter is like in her 60s, and so they're looking at buying a home for 250,000, and the amount for that is to bring to closing is like 14,000. Grant funds is 10,000, so they only have to bring 4,000 of their own money. And so with the FHA program, minimum down payment 3.5%. Grant funds can help to cover the down payment and closing costs. Under conventional financing, again, depending on your credit score, minimum down payment as low as 3%.
Terrific.
So we have some great programs that are available to help.
We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want to thank Mary Edwards.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad. I appreciate it.
Veron Gray from
Thank
the
you.
Equitable Bank. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You have a great day.
We're back at the Home and Garden Show with Smart Start, a podcast by the Equitable Bank, and we have been joined by Mario Monterrey and Sarah Emanuele. Both of them have a unique experience. They started off as first-time homebuyers, but then became loan officers at the Equitable Bank. So let's start off with you, Mario. Mario, can you tell us about that first-time home buying experience with the Equitable Bank, and what was that like?
My experience was awesome with the Equitable Bank. I was 26 years old. One of my buddies was telling me the opportunities that the Equitable Bank had with grant information and how I could afford the house. Went and talked to one of the Equitable Bank's great loan officers, and she was able to give me the information I needed. It actually even motivated me more by letting me know the grant and money that they would be able to help me with, and told me where to go get my homebuyer education, how easy it was, and my process took like about 30 days to get my first time house, get approved for my grant. So I had the house. I didn't even know I was going to get grant, but going to the Equitable Bank was able to put everything together and purchase my first house. And so that's my experience with the Equitable Bank.
There's a better part of the story, though. The reason why your friend told you is you were living with him, right?
Well, yes, I was living with one of my friends that already had his own house, and then was able to, tell me like, hey, Mario, this is how you do it. He was about to get married, and I had to go find a place where to live. Yes, that is true.
You're out. Okay. Okay. All right, Sarah, how about you? What was your experience with it?
So I was tailing right behind Mario. I was 27. I had a 2-year-old at the time, first-time home buyer. The referral to the Equitable Bank loan officer was actually through my mom, who was childhood friends with the loan officer, and she right away said, you need to take this class. You're going to learn all about the process. And I was all for it. And then she had mentioned possible grant opportunities, which I was lucky and got to take advantage of that. It was a lot easier than I had thought. And let's just say I should not have, or I should have, I should say, calculated all the rent money that I was just putting right down the drain into my landlord's vacation account for the last 9 years. Had I would have known then what I know now, I would have purchased probably right out of college. But it was overall a great experience. My daughter lives in a home. She's growing up in that home, and that's what I wanted for her. So
Terrific.
it was awesome.
That's awesome. Okay, so how do you think that translates now, as now both of you have joined the Equitable Bank as loan officers? How does that translate when you have a first-time homebuyer come and meet with you?
So I really just finding their knowledge level or comfortability, I guess, too, at which many first-time home buyers, they mirror how I was, you know. So whether grant eligible or not, to take this course, free course, it's only going to set them up for a less stressful, more successful, and smooth experience. And I truly believe that it sets you up for success when you are going to buy that house, because you'll know the verbiage, the lingo, the steps. You'll feel better about it, and it just kind of makes the entire process more understanding.
Yeah, I would have to agree. The other thing is that now as a mortgage loan officer, I put myself like I was back then. Like I want to know what grants are out there. Am I missing opportunities? What are my options? You know, like how much of a down payment do I have to do? Do I need as much of a down payment? And also get ideas like, okay, maybe how much of that private mortgage insurance that I hear about, is it as expensive as it need to? Maybe it's not, and that way I don't have to put as much as of a down payment. And you know, I think my experience was as a first-time home buyer allows me to put myself in their shoes and say, hey, I want to make sure I give them all the information I can so that they can make the best decisions for themselves.
What are you seeing as the level of anxiety for? What's the big thing that's causing people anxiety in terms of wanting to become a first-time home buyer or a home buyer in general? What's the one thing that's kind of holding them back?
Well, I think sometimes is the down payment. You know, a lot of people, you know, we were walking around and asking people about how much you need a down payment. We actually heard like 20%. You know, that I don't have enough for savings and I don't have enough for the down payment. And so letting people know about the grants that we have, if they're available, or as little as that 3% with different programs that are out there. So it's definitely trying to ease their minds about saying, hey, this is how we do it. And also part of the education that they get of showing, okay, like once you buy a house, you know, how to save, how to budget yourself. That's part of the home buyer education that we work with our partners on as well.
How about you, Sarah? What do you see that people get a little bit anxious about when they're looking to buy?
Similar, you know, the down payment aspect, you know, even just the, you know, what happens if something breaks, something that comes along with purchasing a house. But thank goodness for technology and resources, and especially the nonprofit organizations that are out there that can support with getting, you know, depending on whatever that issue may be. But it's really just, I think, knowing that you're investing in yourself with purchasing a home. You're not locked into anything for the rest of your life, right? So it's.
Just want to say one thing also too, that home warranties nowadays are very popular. So a customer, the first time home buyer that is maybe afraid of saying like, what if something breaks down? Yeah, nowadays a lot of realtors do a really good job to make sure that they put in at least a 1-year home warranty that can kind of give them peace of mind that, you know, hey, I'm buying this house, I have this home warranty, that if something was to happen, that they don't necessarily have to use their own money, and they can have that peace of mind where they can have that year to save as well to kind of do that. So again, educating the first-time home buyer will, like, you know, the calm down of putting 3% down, that you have a home warranty, and that you're going to build equity that's going to help our community and their lives.
So then talking about what are some of the things that you see when you get somebody wants to come in to get pre-approved? What are some of the things that maybe cause the hiccup for them? You know, what kind of stops the process? what do you do to coach them through that? So what are you typically seeing that when somebody comes in, I want to go buy a house? What's the thing that typically they might not have thought about? Aside from the down payment, obviously. Okay, everybody thinks they need to have 20% down or think that they need 20% down.
Well, in my case, when people call me and want to know about a pre-approval, I try to make it as easy as possible. I ask them the questions and saying, like, Sarah said, like, okay, what's your income? I start with that, and then kind of ask them, okay, what are your expenses? And then, ours as the loan officers, we just work with numbers and say, hey, we do the math for you and say, hey, this is an estimate of what we think you can get pre-approved for, and then go from there. And so that's what the pre-approval process is usually with my customers. Try to make it as easy as possible. And like Sarah says, look at credit, what your expenses are, and then we'll let you know what you can get pre-approved for.
What do you want to have when somebody wants to get pre-approved? What do you want to have in their hand, and what's the timing for doing such a thing? So I call you today at 4 o'clock. When can I expect to have that pre-approval? Because I'm going shopping tomorrow. When can I expect to have that pre-approval?
So if somebody's coming with me to get a pre-approval and they're looking to shop tomorrow, I ask that they have last 2 years of W-2s, 1 month of pay stubs, and last 2 months of bank statements. And with that kind of documentation gives us an ability to be able to get you pre-approved within 24 hours. If you do the application online, get it. We have a system you can download it or contact us, and we make it easy to get that information, and we could potentially get you pre-approved by 24 hours.
So tomorrow, Saturday, I can get pre-approved?
If you get your application in by the end of the business day, because we have to pull your credit, it's 4 o'clock, you apply by 5 o'clock, and I get your 2 years of W-2 forms, not your whole federal tax returns. I have to say that a lot. I don't know if that comes across for you, but 2 years W-2s, 30 days pay stubs, 2 months of bank statements, your driver's license, and I am confident in that moment to at least administer a pre-approval certificate until the underwriter can get their hands on the file on Monday.
Okay, so I can go shopping tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about, okay, I'm a recent college graduate. Okay, I just graduated from college. Can I buy a home?
Absolutely. If you can furnish your transcripts from college.
Okay.
Yes, that is something that, we understand coming out of college, that is one of the guidelines that we will accept your transcripts as in lieu of a 2-year work history.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely if you're graduating from college, congratulations, first of all, that you did it. And then, yes, and definitely one of the great benefits of getting an education is that hopefully you get a good career that allows you to get your house where you want it and you can start investing. And definitely contact us if you're in that position where you just graduated, want to see where your new employer is going to get you. And yeah, definitely it's not something that can hold you.
Now, you're both lenders, so I understand rates are ultra sensitive to both of you. But at the end of the day, everybody right now, too, is like, oh, my God, rates have gotten so out of control. They're so high now. What do you tell people today?
Well, I again, one of the things I do with my customers, I give them options, and tell them, okay, if you think rates are going to come down later, we give you options and we give them rates that they can work with them. It's about educating the customer, saying, hey, the market is at this right now. It's been lower. The possibilities of going down are there. How do we structure your loan to make sense for a refinance in the future that we will hopefully help you with to get you a better rate in the past? So definitely, I know personally when I bought my first house, it was in 2006. The rates were 6.5% back then, and
lower right now.
They're lower right now, and right about there. But I was able to still succeed, and even before the crash, that the house that I bought was still a benefit to me. So kept it as an investment. Was able to rent it out, definitely. And, I tell that story to everybody, especially in today's rate where people are thinking that the market's too high or the rates are too high. I personally got in 2006 when the rates were high and some people say the market was high. But if you look at long-term investment, it paid off, and it did for me as well. So
Do you have
Yeah.
anything to add?
Really, it comes, Mario pretty much hit it, but yeah, do you want to continue paying $1,400 to your landlord
Yeah.
every month?
And that's
Or,
and that's I wanted to touch on that a little bit. So Sarah, you talked about the rental and how you did the math. So
don't do
it. Don't do the math.
No.
So when you talked about the renters, when you were renting, or when you're talking to somebody who is currently renting, and I think that might have a little
Yeah.
hesitation about doing that.
Yeah.
What do you think they should do to kind of come up with a conclusion or draw a conclusion that they might want to buy a home today?
So what I lately, and I don't know how long this has always been, but when you're applying to even get a rental unit somewhere, you you're expected to make, what is it, 3 times your
rent
your rent payment or something. Like your
Okay.
income has to be 3 times the amount of this and that, and they run your credit too. So if it's about the rates, okay, would you rather take a 10% rate over 100% when you're giving your rent money to your landlord every month?
Yeah.
Or and the other thing too, Mario, is I look at this 30-year mortgage history chart. The average since 1979 is 7.77% of an interest rate. We are still nearly, we are well below the 30-year history average. So bringing that reality back in of, the rates are not high. 1981, they were around the 18%.
Yeah.
But even so, I guarantee you there was more equity, more security with that than renting, than just being a renter.
And no, I mean, like Tom said, with asking customers, what are they paying for rent? And then kind of going from there and saying like, hey, this is what we can afford you. What can afford you to go purchase? And so, given that.
And you're not married to anything. You're not married to the home. You can date the rate. You can switch it up, to benefit your situation. Sometimes people will refinance at a higher rate, but they just paid off $10,000 plus in credit card debt at 29% of the rate. So, it really is every case by case, and it's our duty to ensure that we're giving out all the options that's available, and letting the customer decide what's best for them.
Okay, 60 seconds each of you. What would you tell, just doesn't have to be you specifically, but what would you tell a first-time home buyer? What should they be looking for in a lender?
I think look for a lender that you trust. I think is one of an important thing, that is educating you on the whole process, that's available to you through the process. And I think those are the things that a first-time home buyer can be looking as, again, trust, availability, and being there. So
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Communication, finding a lender that you can trust, that you can comfortably ask questions, and making sure that if you don't understand something, that you can actually say, hey, Joe Smith, I have no idea what you just said. Can you explain that to me better? And hopefully with the right lender, you'll have established that kind of fluid communication pretty quickly, hopefully.
And something that we've kind of touched on, or one of the things that we kind of communicate to sometimes with people is, it might be no today,
yes,
it doesn't mean no forever.
yes.
And then I think part of the things you guys might want to emphasize to them, and what you do emphasize to them, is the point that this is what we need to do to get you to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
First thing can be no, but hey, XYZ, follow these steps or guidelines that's suggested, and we'll get you to that finish line. It could be 3 months, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years, but at least you know where you're at and how to get to that finish line.
No, definitely. I think going through that information that can tell you, you know, what to pay off on a credit. When we pull your credit, definitely that's something I do with all my customers. If it's a no, how do we get it to a yes? You know, and so in anybody, I think everybody can get to a yes. It's just time and you know, assistance, and so be happy.
So I've got my pre-approval, right? Now I've got my accepted offer for the home.
Congratulations.
Great. What don't I do?
Don't go buying furniture. Please do not go to Holders. Do not go to Home Depot. Just don't get that fridge that you've been eyeing at Best Buy.
Why not?
Just wait.
Why?
Don't open new credit.
Why?
Because we actually check up to 3 days before closing. We do a soft check, and if those debts skyrocketed up, or if it at all adjusts to affecting your ability to qualify at that point, yeah, that could just crumble the whole ending there.
And again, it goes back to having communication with your loan officer. You shouldn't open new credit. Make sure that you have enough funds for closing, that that we will be able to verify those funds. And again, if you're looking to purchase or be ready for your closing, talk to your loan officer. You know, there may be a possibility that you could get a loan, because we look at your debt to income ratio, and that determines if you're able to get it or not, and say that. So again, having that open communication with your loan officer, saying, hey, Mario, I want to get ready I'm excited for my closing, and I want to get this. Can I do it? Check with me first, and there's maybe a possibility that you could, but there may be a possibility you shouldn't. Yeah. So again, having that open communication is
Set the expectation.
Key.
Yeah.
Set the expectation. Okay, very good. So one last thing is with regard to what's the importance of a community bank in this situation? Okay, let's say I've got my pre-approval and you ask me for bank statements. Anything that I'd want to know about those bank statements?
Yeah. So
why is the difference importance about doing a community bank versus?
So I personally had a situation recently where one of my clients had online banks, and we're looking to confirm that they had funds for closing, because their previous statements did not show they had enough funds, but they had got paid during the month, and we were looking for a transaction history. And unfortunately, he had an online bank that did not offer transaction history. I was on the phone with them, and they actually told us that we would have to wait till the end of the month to actually get the bank statement, because they do not offer transaction history, which gives a balance. And so definitely, having a local bank that you can get that information, access is a big benefit.
You know the saying, I know where you live.
Yes.
It's like that. You know where I work, so it's. I'm discoverable. I'm findable.
There's brick and mortar where you work.
Yeah, we're here. So if that means I got to drive to your house and get your bank statement, I'll do it.
Sarah
It has to be
Manuele.
very extreme for that. You'd have to be like the day before closing or something.
Sarah Manuele, Mario Monterey of the Equitable Bank. Thanks for joining us on the Smart Start podcast.
Thank you.
And remember, there's no problems, only solutions.
Only solutions.
Definitely.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us for the Smart Start podcast presented by the Equitable Bank. Hope you learned some stuff about home buying, buying that dream home of yours, or everything else. And remember to subscribe and follow us on social media for smart financing ideas. And remember, there are no problems, just solutions.